Have you ever wondered why some feelings seem to linger long after a difficult event has passed? You might notice a tightness in your shoulders that never quite goes away, or a knot in your stomach when you think about a particular memory. This isn't just your imagination. There's a growing understanding in science and in therapy that our bodies hold onto experiences, especially traumatic ones. This idea is called somatic memory. It suggests our bodies can remember what our conscious minds try to push away. That memory isn't stored in words or images. It's stored in our muscles, in our posture, and in how our nervous system operates. That creates a physical record of emotional history. The idea that trauma lives in the body is a revolutionary shift. It moves us beyond treating mind and body as separate. It invites us to see them as a deeply interconnected system, where emotional pain shows up as real physical symptoms. Understanding this connection is the first step toward healing. It validates people told their pain is all in their head. It teaches us to listen to our bodies with compassion and curiosity. It opens doors to whole-person healing. This intro will guide you through the topic. We'll explain somatic memory clearly and accessibly. We'll demystify how emotional shocks become physically embedded. We'll look at the biological processes, without jargon. Our tone will be calm, factual, and respectful. This knowledge is practical and hopeful for anyone with unexplained physical discomfort. We'll keep a steady, supportive approach. This is a safe space for learning. Next, we'll define how emotions can be stored in tissues. Then we'll explain why this matters for health. Finally, we'll prepare you for practical steps to release what the body holds. So, what exactly happens when we say trauma is stored in the body? This isn't a mystical concept, but a biological reality rooted in our survival instincts. When we face a threatening or overwhelming situation, our body's alarm system is triggered. Fight, flight, freeze. A flood of stress chemicals, like adrenaline and cortisol, prepares us for immediate action. However, if we are unable to fight back or run away, that immense surge of survival energy has nowhere to go. This is especially common in situations of childhood trauma abuse accidents that unreleased energy becomes trapped, held in our muscles and nervous system like a compressed spring. This trapped energy doesn't just disappear over time, it can create chronic patterns of physical tension and dysregulation. Think of it as body armor: jaw, neck, shoulders, hips. This constant state of high alert puts a tremendous strain on your nervous system, keeping it stuck in survival mode. You might feel persistently anxious, hypervigilant, or you might swing to the other extreme, feeling emotionally numb, disconnected from your body and the world around you. These are not character flaws, but physiological responses to unresolved trauma. The purpose of this video is to bridge the gap between these physical experiences and their emotional roots. We will walk you through each step of this process in a clear and structured way. First, we will explain how trauma becomes physically stored in the body. Next, we will delve into the science that clarifies this powerful mind-body connection, making complex ideas easy to grasp. We will then provide real-life examples to help you recognize how these patterns might be showing up in your own life. Finally, and most importantly, we will present a range of effective healing approaches that work with the body to release this stored trauma and restore a sense of safety and balance. Our journey is about empowerment through understanding. By learning how the body holds onto trauma, you can begin to see your physical symptoms not as a source of shame, but as a messenger. Your body is communicating a story that needs to be heard and healed. This video aims to give you the language and the tools to start that conversation. We will set a calm and factual tone, ensuring the information is presented in a way that feels safe and supportive. The goal is not just to inform you, but to provide a clear pathway toward real relief, showing that it is possible to soothe the nervous system and let go of the physical burdens of the past. Table of Contents, Part 2, Act 1, How Trauma Gets Stored, about 4 sections. Section 1, The Initial Shock and the Survival Response. Section 2, When Energy Gets Trapped. Section 3, The Body's Armor, Chronic Muscle Tension. Every story of stored trauma begins with a moment of overwhelming shock. When we perceive a threat, a sudden accident, a frightening confrontation, a prolonged period of emotional distress, our body's ancient survival system instantly takes over. This is not a conscious choice. It is a primal, automatic reaction designed to keep us alive. Known as the fight response, known as the flight response, known as the freeze response, this mechanism prepares our entire being for immediate, decisive action. Your brain's alarm center, the amygdala, sends an emergency signal to the rest of your body, bypassing rational thought. This is why, in a moment of crisis, we often act before we have time to think. Our instincts are in the driver's seat, prioritizing survival above all else. In response to this alarm signal, your adrenal glands release a powerful surge of stress chemicals. The most well-known of these are adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline gives you a burst of energy. It increases your heart rate, it elevates your blood pressure, it boosts your immediate energy so you can react with speed and strength. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, follows closely behind, increasing sugars in the bloodstream to fuel your brain and increasing availability of substances that repair tissues. It also curbs functions that would be non-essential in a fight or flight situation. Your senses sharpen, your muscles tense, your body is primed to confront, your body is primed to escape. This intricate biological cascade is a masterpiece of evolution, mobilizing huge energy for peak physical performance. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. Your pupils dilate to let in more light. Blood is diverted away from digestion toward major muscle groups. In an ideal scenario, you would use this surge to fight off the attacker or run to safety, completing the survival cycle. However, modern life often presents threats not resolved by physical action. The stress response system, evolved for predators, now fires for psychological or emotional threats. A harsh word from a boss, feeling trapped in an abusive relationship, ongoing financial stress. Fighting or fleeing is often not viable or socially acceptable in these cases. That mismatch is where trauma starts to get stored, because the powerful survival energy has no clear path for release. What happens when this powerful survival response is blocked? Imagine a dam holding back a rushing river. If the water has nowhere to go, the pressure builds and builds, stressing the entire structure. A similar process occurs in our bodies. When we are unable to complete the fight or flight sequence, when we cannot physically defend ourselves or escape from a threatening situation, the massive amount of energy mobilized for survival gets stuck. This is particularly common in situations where we feel powerless, such as childhood neglect or abuse, a medical procedure, a car accident, where we are pinned, any form of assault where we are overpowered. The instinct to act is thwarted, but the energy remains. This unreleased energy doesn't simply vanish. It becomes trapped within the nervous system and the body's tissues, primarily in our muscles. The body, primed for intense exertion, is left in a state of high alert with no resolution. The muscles that tensed in preparation for action may not fully relax. The nervous system, which revved up to handle the threat, may not receive the all-clear signal it needs to return to a calm state. This suspended, incomplete response is a core mechanism behind how trauma becomes physically embodied. The body essentially freezes the moment of the traumatic event within its cellular memory, holding on to the physiological state of that overwhelming experience. This state of trapped energy is not just a metaphor. It has real physiological consequences. The nervous system becomes dysregulated, meaning it loses its flexibility to move between states of alertness and relaxation. Instead, it can get stuck in the on position, perpetuating a cycle of hyperarousal. This is the body continuing to brace for a danger that has already passed. The experience is stored not as a coherent narrative memory in the brain, but as fragmented sensory and emotional imprints. A racing heart, shallow breath, clenched muscles, a sense of dread. These physical sensations can then be re-triggered by reminders of the original event, pulling the person right back into the physiological state of the trauma. For many trauma survivors, this feeling of being trapped is a familiar one, both emotionally and physically. They might describe a sense of being stuck, unable to move forward in their lives, which mirrors the way their survival energy is stuck in their bodies. This is why talking about the trauma is sometimes not enough for healing. The conscious mind might understand that the danger is over, but the body is still living in the past, holding on to the unresolved survival response. To truly heal, we must find ways to address this trapped energy directly, helping the body finally complete the actions it was unable to take at the time of the trauma and release the stored charge. Section 3. The body's armor. Chronic muscle tension. When survival energy remains trapped in the body long-term, it often manifests as chronic muscle tension. This isn't the temporary soreness after a workout. It's a persistent, deep-seated tightness that can last for years or even decades. The muscles that instinctively tensed up to protect you during the traumatic event may never have fully learned to let go. This creates what therapist Wilhelm Reich famously called body armor. Patterns of rigid muscular holding that serve as a physical defense against perceived threats and overwhelming emotions. This armor restricts not only movement, but also feeling, helping to numb the emotional pain associated with the trauma. It becomes a subconscious strategy for survival, a physical wall built to keep the world out. These patterns of tension are not random. They often develop in specific areas of the body. Diagram highlighting jaw, neck, shoulders, lower back, hips. For instance, if you wanted to scream or speak out but couldn't, you might develop chronic tension in your jaw, throat, neck, leading to conditions like TMJ disorder or persistent neck pain. If you braced for an impact or carried a heavy emotional burden, your shoulders and upper back might become perpetually tight and raised, as if you are always ready for a blow. The lower back and hips are also common storage sites, as they are central to the fight or flight response, related to our ability to run and stand our ground. This body armor profoundly affects our posture and the way we move through the world. A person carrying the weight of trauma might literally appear weighed down, with rounded shoulders and a collapsed chest, a physical posture that both reflects and reinforces feelings of defeat and sadness. Someone living in a state of constant fear might have a rigid, braced posture with a tight abdomen and shallow breathing, limiting their capacity for full, deep breaths that signal safety to the nervous system. These postural shifts are not just bad habits. They are the physical embodiment of a person's emotional history, a story told not in words, but in the very structure of their body. Over time, this chronic muscular tension can lead to a host of physical problems. The constant state of contraction restricts blood flow, limits the movement of lymphatic fluid, and can impinge on nerves, leading to chronic pain, stiffness, and reduced mobility. Conditions like tension headaches, migraines, fibromyalgia, persistent back pain are often linked to these underlying patterns of stored trauma. The body is essentially paying the price for the unresolved emotional and physiological stress it is holding. Recognizing these patterns of body armor is a crucial step in understanding that the pain is not all in your head. It is a real physical manifestation of an unhealed wound. Section 4. A nervous system stuck in survival mode. Beyond muscular tension, trauma gets stored via dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system, the ANS. The ANS is the control panel for automatic bodily functions, heartbeat, breathing, digestion, and more. It has two main branches: sympathetic nervous system, our gas pedal, fight or flight; parasympathetic nervous system, our brake, rest, digestion, recovery. In a healthy, regulated system, these branches dance flexibly. Visual, regulated versus dysregulated lines, allowing us to rev up when needed and calm down when it's safe. Trauma disrupts this balance, trapping survival energy and locking the system. Sympathetic hyperarousal can take hold, like having the gas pedal to the floor. Constant survival mode, hypervigilant, always scanning for threats, easily startled, prone to anxiety, panic attacks, irritability, flooded with stress hormones, racing heart, shallow breathing. Digestive issues. Sleep becomes difficult. Body never gets the safe to rest signal. Chronic high alert is exhausting and strains every bodily system. If fight or flight isn't possible, the body may freeze. Freeze response governed by the dorsal vagal complex. A state of shutdown. Emotional numbness. Dissociation. Feeling disconnected from the body. Feeling dead inside. Empty. Exhausted. This isn't laziness or conventional depression. It's physiological conservation. Body shuts down non-essential functions to endure threat. Many survivors oscillate between extremes, frantic hyperarousal and collapsed freeze. Long-term dysregulation explains why trauma leads to chronic illness. A body in survival mode can't maintain functions like digestion, immune response, cellular repair. Constant cortisol drives widespread inflammation. This fuels many modern diseases. Higher rates of autoimmune disorders, heart disease, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue, and trauma-exposed populations. The body is not broken. It's stuck in a survival pattern that was meant to be temporary. Section 1. The body's control panel. The autonomic nervous system. To understand how trauma becomes physically embedded, we must first look at the body's internal control panel, the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. This system is the silent, tireless manager of our inner world. It operates automatically, without any conscious thought from us, controlling vital functions like our heartbeat, breathing rate, digestion, and blood pressure. The ANS is constantly working to keep our body in a state of balance, known as homeostasis. It is split into two primary branches that act like a gas pedal and a brake for our physiology. The sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal, activating our fight or flight response. The parasympathetic nervous system is the brake, promoting our rest and digest state. In a healthy individual, these two branches work in harmony. When you face a stressful situation, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, preparing you for action. Your heart beats faster, your breathing quickens, energy is mobilized. Once the threat has passed, the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, gently applying the brakes. It slows your heart rate, deepens your breath, signals to your body that it is safe to relax. Repair digest. This flexible rhythm between activation and relaxation is the hallmark of a resilient nervous system. It allows us to meet life's challenges with energy and then return to a state of calm and equilibrium afterward, ensuring our internal resources are not depleted. Trauma fundamentally disrupts this delicate balance. It can cause the ANS to become dysregulated, meaning it loses its ability to shift flexibly between these states. An unresolved traumatic experience can leave the sympathetic nervous system stuck in the on position. The body continues to act as if the threat is still present, even years later. This chronic state of hyperarousal means the gas pedal is constantly being pressed. The body is flooded with stress hormones, and the brake, the parasympathetic system, is unable to engage effectively. The person is essentially living in a perpetual state of emergency, unable to access the deep rest and recovery that is essential for long-term health. This dysregulation is not a psychological failing. It is a physiological reality. The nervous system has learned from the traumatic experience that the world is an unsafe place, and it adapts by staying on high alert to protect itself. Unfortunately, this adaptive survival response becomes maladaptive when it persists long after the danger is gone. The constant sympathetic activation places an enormous strain on the cardiovascular system, weakens the immune system, impairs digestion. Understanding the role of the ANS is the first step in seeing how an emotional wound can create a cascade of very real, very physical problems throughout the entire body. It is the central mechanism translating emotional shock into bodily distress. Section 2. The vagus nerve, the mind-body superhighway. At the heart of the autonomic nervous system's communication network is the vagus nerve. This is the longest cranial nerve in the body. It acts as a mind-body superhighway, connecting the brain to many important organs. Heart, lungs, digestive tract. The vagus nerve is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, our body's braking system. When functioning well, it sends signals of safety and calm from the brain to the body and back. It helps to slow our heart rate, regulate our breathing, promote digestion. Healthy vagal tone links to better physical health and emotional resilience. trauma can significantly dysregulate the vagus nerve. In a survival state, sympathetic alarm signals override the calming vagal influence. That leads to low vagal tone. The mind-body communication highway breaks down. The body stops receiving consistent safety messages. This shows up as physical symptoms tied to organs the vagus influences: heart palpitations, a racing pulse. Gut problems like irritable bowel syndrome can occur. The vagus nerve has a primitive branch, the dorsal vagal complex, responsible for the freeze response. If a threat feels inescapable, this system can trigger total shutdown. Heart rate and breathing dramatically slow. Collapse or dissociation can follow. It's a last-ditch survival effort. Conserve energy and numb pain. For trauma survivors, this dorsal vagal state can become default. Numbness, disconnection, chronic fatigue, depression. They're stuck in physiological shutdown. Polyvagal theory, Dr. Stephen Porges, maps this science for understanding trauma. It shows anxiety, disconnection, gut distress are tied to vagal function, not just in your head. Authors like Gabor Mate link early life stress to vagus development and later health problems. The good news, we can improve vagal tone with practices. Deep, slow breathing, humming, cold exposure. These are simple, practical steps that can really help. Section 3. The HPA axis, the body's chronic stress loop. Alongside the nervous system, another critical biological system is impacted by trauma. The HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, with cortisol feedback arrow. This is our central stress response system, a complex feedback loop controlling cortisol, our main long-term stress hormone. When your brain perceives a threat, the hypothalamus releases a hormone. Pituitary gland is signaled. Adrenal glands on top of the kidneys are signaled. Adrenals release cortisol. In a healthy response, cortisol helps manage the stress. After the threat passes, cortisol falls and the HPA axis returns to baseline. Alarm off. With chronic stress or unresolved trauma, the HPA axis can become dysregulated. It can get stuck in the on position, a vicious stress cycle. The feedback loop that tells the brain to stop producing cortisol becomes faulty. The body is then constantly bathed in high cortisol. Short bursts of cortisol are useful. Prolonged presence is damaging. It can suppress the immune system, making you more susceptible to infections. It can disrupt sleep patterns. It can contribute to weight gain. It can impair memory. It can impair concentration. Chronically elevated cortisol leads to widespread inflammation. Inflammation is normal for healing. Chronic inflammation drives major diseases. High cortisol promotes inflammatory state throughout the body. Clinical findings link PTSD with higher rates of inflammatory conditions. The dysregulated HPA axis fuels autoimmune diseases. It contributes to heart disease. It contributes to certain types of cancer. Emotional trauma becomes a biological process that harms tissues. This science moves us beyond blaming individuals for their health. It's not lack of willpower. It's a system stuck in survival mode. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score documents HPA alterations in trauma survivors. That research validates people who feel emotionally and physically unwell. Healing must recalibrate the HPA axis and soothe chronic stress. So, we need approaches that address the whole system. Section 4. The clinical evidence. When trauma becomes illness. The scientific theories connecting trauma to the body are strongly supported by a growing mountain of clinical evidence. Large-scale studies have consistently shown that individuals with a history of trauma, particularly those diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, have significantly higher rates of chronic physical illness compared to the general population. Visual increased health risks with PTSD, chronic pain, heart disease, autoimmune issues, asthma. This is not a coincidence. It is a predictable outcome of the long-term physiological stress we have been discussing. The dysregulation of the nervous system and the HPA axis creates a state of internal turmoil that, over time, wears down the body's systems and leads to disease. The body is essentially paying the physical price for its emotional wounds. Researchers have found strong correlations between post-traumatic stress disorder and a wide range of health problems. For example, trauma survivors show a much higher prevalence of chronic pain conditions, fibromyalgia, chronic back pain, severe headaches, or migraines. The body armor of chronic muscle tension and the sensitization of the nervous system contribute directly to this pain. Furthermore, cardiovascular diseases, high blood pressure, heart attacks are more common in this population. The constant state of sympathetic hyperarousal puts a relentless strain on the heart and blood vessels, accelerating wear and tear and increasing the risk of cardiac events. The immune system is also profoundly affected. The combination of chronic inflammation and suppressed immune function creates a perfect storm for illness. Studies show that people with post-traumatic stress disorder have higher rates of autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis. Additionally, respiratory problems such as asthma are more common and often more severe in individuals who have experienced trauma. The body's defense system becomes confused, either overreacting or underreacting, leaving the person vulnerable to a host of ailments. It is crucial to clarify one important point. Not every ache, pain, or illness is caused by trauma. Many factors contribute to our health. However, what the science makes undeniable is that trauma significantly increases the risk. It acts as a powerful catalyst, creating a biological environment in which disease is more likely to develop and thrive. This perspective is revolutionary because it calls for a more integrated approach to healthcare. A doctor treating a patient with chronic pain or an autoimmune disease should be encouraged to ask about their emotional history, and a therapist treating a trauma survivor should be aware of their physical health. Healing the mind and healing the body are not separate tasks. They are two parts of the same whole. Our bodies are constantly communicating with us, sending signals about our internal state. When trauma is stored physically, these signals often take the form of chronic and unexplained symptoms. Learning to recognize these signs is the first step toward understanding the stories your body is trying to tell. One of the most common manifestations is persistent tension in the shoulders and neck. This area often tightens when we feel we are carrying a heavy burden of responsibility or stress. If you find your shoulders are perpetually hunched up towards your ears, it may be a physical expression of the emotional weight you have been holding. Another frequent signal is a feeling of tightness or pressure in the chest. This sensation can be linked to unresolved grief, deep sadness, anxiety. The chest houses our heart and lungs, organs tied to connection and our breath. When we experience loss or fear, our instinct can be to physically close off this vulnerable area, leading to shallow breathing and constriction. This guarding can become a chronic somatic memory. It is the body's way of protecting a wounded heart, even long after the event. Many people with stored trauma also experience significant digestive issues. The gut is often called our second brain because it connects to emotion through the vagus nerve. Feelings of fear, suppressed anger, a persistent sense of dread can manifest as stomach problems like irritable bowel syndrome, chronic nausea, acid reflux. When our nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, blood is diverted from digestion, impairing its function. This is why a gut feeling of danger is so powerful. The digestive tract responds to perceived threat, and chronic activation leads to chronic distress. Finally, tension in the jaw, often TMJ disorder or teeth grinding, can signal unspoken words and suppressed emotion. When we feel unable to speak our truth, stand up for ourselves, or express anger, that unarticulated energy can get stuck in the muscles used for speaking and biting. Clenching the jaw becomes a substitute for the words that were never said. Similarly, a feeling of numbness or being frozen in parts of the body can indicate deeper shutdown from severe trauma. This dissociation protects but disconnects us from our physical experience. Recognizing these signs is not about self-diagnosis, but about beginning a compassionate dialogue with your body, To make these connections clearer, let's look at a few short, relatable vignettes. These are representative stories, not real patients. Imagine a woman named Sarah. She works in a high-pressure corporate job. She suffers from debilitating migraines. She also has constant, grinding neck pain. In therapy, she realizes the pain began after caring for her ailing mother while managing a demanding project at work and feeling unsupported in both roles. Her physical pain reflects the immense weight of responsibility she felt. Her neck and shoulders are literally holding that overwhelming burden. Consider a man named David. He has struggled with severe irritable bowel syndrome. His symptoms flare unpredictably and cause social anxiety. He connects his gut issues to a childhood with a volatile, angry parent where he felt constantly on edge and afraid. He learned to swallow his fear and try to be invisible. His stomach still lives in that state of fear, clenching and churning as if danger is always near. The suppressed terror found a voice through painful gut cramping. Next, a young artist, Maria. She experiences chronic jaw pain. She also clenches her teeth in her sleep. She grew up where disagreement was discouraged and learned to suppress her needs. Her jaw is holding a lifetime of unspoken words and silenced anger. The physical tension is emotional energy with nowhere to go. Finally, Tom, a veteran. He feels numbness in his legs and disconnected from his lower body. He survived a combat event where he was forced to remain still and hidden for hours. His body learned that freezing was the only way to survive. Now his nervous system sometimes reverts to that shutdown state, creating a physical and emotional disconnect from parts of his body associated with escape. These stories show our symptoms are not random. They are meaningful messages from our past, waiting to be understood and healed. Once we recognize that trauma is held in the body, it becomes clear that traditional talk therapy alone may not be enough. While talking is crucial for making sense of our experiences, healing often requires approaches that work directly with the body's stored sensations and survival responses. These are known as body-based or somatic therapies. An eye, a lotus, sound waves, and hands. One of the most well-known is somatic experiencing, developed by Dr. Peter Levine. This gentle method helps individuals become aware of their physical sensations and guides them to safely release trapped survival energy through small, manageable steps. It allows the body to complete defensive responses it couldn't at the time of the trauma. Another powerful modality is EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. While it involves recalling traumatic memories, its core mechanism is biological. The use of bilateral stimulation helps the brain to reprocess the traumatic memory, moving the eyes back and forth. Alternating taps on the hands. This lets the memory be stored more adaptively, reducing emotional and physical intensity. EMDR integrates fragmented pieces of the experience, so it no longer feels like it's happening now. This can significantly reduce intrusive thoughts and related physical symptoms. Practices like trauma-focused yoga and breathwork are also incredibly effective. Trauma-focused yoga emphasizes internal experience over external form. It uses gentle movements, postures, and mindful awareness to help reconnect with the body safely. Breathwork, which involves conscious control of the breath, is a direct way to regulate the autonomic nervous system. By learning to slow down and deepen the breath, we can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's brake, sending signals of safety and calm throughout our entire being, helping to soothe a state of hyperarousal. Finally, hands-on approaches can soften body armor from chronic muscle tension. Therapeutic massage, myofascial release. These work on tight muscles and connective tissues, helping release physical restrictions and stored emotional energy. Dance and movement therapy provide a creative outlet, allowing emotions to be processed and released through free, non-judgmental motion. The goal of all these therapies is the same: to help the nervous system regain its natural rhythm and allow the body to let go of the past, restoring a sense of safety, wholeness, and vitality in the present. While deep trauma work is best done with the support of a trained therapist, there are simple, safe practices you can begin exploring today to gently reconnect with your body and soothe your nervous system. One of the most accessible tools is the practice of grounding. Bring your awareness to the physical points of contact between your body and the environment. You can do this right now. Feel your feet flat on the floor. Notice the texture of the ground beneath them. Feel the support of the chair against your back. This simple noticing of physical sensation can pull your mind out of anxious thoughts and anchor you in the here and now. Another powerful yet simple practice is mindful breathing. Don't change your breath at first, just notice it. Place a hand on your belly and observe the gentle rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. When you're ready, gently extend your exhale so it's slightly longer than your inhale. For example, breathe in for 4, out for 6. A longer exhale helps stimulate the vagus nerve and activates the body's relaxation response. Gentle, mindful movement can also help release stored tension. Slowly and intentionally stretch your neck from side to side. Gently roll your shoulders forward and back. Pay attention to sensations as you move. Don't push through pain. Explore your range with curiosity and kindness. These small movements can thaw frozen areas and soften chronic tension. Approach these practices with caution and self-compassion. If you feel overwhelmed, dizzy, or highly distressed, stop and return to a grounding technique. These tools can bring up intense emotions for those with significant trauma. They're a starting point, not a replacement for professional help. Begin building a foundation of safety within your body. By listening with patience and offering gentle moments of calm, you start healing from the inside out. We have journeyed through the intricate landscape of how trauma impacts our physical selves, uncovering a profound truth. The body keeps the score. We began by introducing the concept of somatic memory, the idea that our muscles, tissues, and nervous systems can hold on to the imprint of overwhelming experiences long after our conscious minds have tried to move on. We then explored the biological process, seeing how the body's natural survival responses, fight, flight, freeze, can leave a residue of trapped energy when the cycle is incomplete. This unreleased energy, we learned, manifests as chronic muscle tension or body armor, and a nervous system stuck in a debilitating state of high alert or shutdown, telling a story of past dangers through present-day physical symptoms. Delving into the science, we illuminated the mechanisms behind this powerful mind-body link. We examined how trauma dysregulates the autonomic nervous system, throwing the delicate balance between our body's gas pedal and brake into disarray. We followed the path of the vagus nerve, the great communicator between brain and body, and saw how its function could be impaired, leading to issues with our heart, lungs, and gut. We also uncovered the role of the HPA axis, which can get locked into a chronic stress loop, flooding the body with inflammatory cortisol. The clinical evidence solidified this understanding, showing a clear and undeniable connection between a history of trauma and a higher risk for chronic pain, heart disease, and autoimmune disorders, validating the physical suffering of countless individuals. Finally, we turned towards the path of healing, recognizing that if trauma is stored in the body, then healing must also involve the body. We saw how symptoms like tight shoulders, chest pressure, and stomach issues can be read as meaningful signals from our past. We then explored a rich toolkit of body-based therapies. Somatic experiencing EMDR, trauma-informed yoga breathwork, each offering a unique pathway to release trapped energy and help the nervous system rediscover its natural, resilient rhythm. These approaches honor the body's wisdom and its innate capacity to heal, moving beyond simply talking about the past to actively resolving its physical legacy. The journey of healing is one of integration, of bringing mind and body back into a harmonious dialogue. As we conclude, the most important takeaway is one of hope and empowerment. Understanding that your physical symptoms may be connected to your emotional history is not a cause for despair, but a call to a deeper, more compassionate form of healing. The first step is to simply begin noticing your body's signals with curiosity rather than judgment. From there, you can explore gentle, grounding practices to create moments of safety and calm. When you are ready, seeking the guidance of a qualified therapist trained in somatic approaches can provide the support needed for deeper work. By embracing a path that integrates medical care, psychological care, and body-based care, you can begin to release the burdens of the past and reclaim a sense of wholeness, vitality, and peace within your own skin.